A lot of people play the lottery, and that is not a plan to get rich.
That's right.
Winning the lottery is not a plan to get rich. So yeah, you know the talents, and we all let's back. We all have talents. We all have skills. We all have something to give to the game. Yeah. And God has given us all gifts. The question is, are we using them?
Good morning or good evening or wherever you are in the country. This is the Today for Tomorrow podcast. And in this episode, I want to make this a little bit more contextual. I want to make this a little bit more personal for the people. I want to talk to specifically the man who stopped going to church completely because the pastor that was at that church gave 3 giving segments. And then he also made the first side chick the authority over the women's ministry. I want to talk to the multiple 6-figure earner who's on the brink of suicide because money was the magnet that attracted his closest so-called friends, his wife, and the family members who thought he was annoying as a kid, but now they think everything that he says is smart and every joke that he tells is funny. But also, I want to make this just a bit more personal and talk to the man who consciously or subconsciously knows that he made work his God. And all it's going to take is a layoff for him to lose all passion, compassion, and concern for his wife and kids. The crazy thing about this guy is that his wife and kids never felt any concern or compassion from him in the first place. In this episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast, myself and the fellas, we talk about the love of money. Good morning.
Good morning. What's up? What's up?
Good morning.
Welcome. So, like we said, we're talking about the love of money. Fellas, where do you want to start? I mean, this is a piggyback episode. Everybody, if you haven't already, there's an episode called God and Money. This is a follow-up to that. We're just going to get a little bit deeper into the weeds and the nuts and bolts of this topic right here today. Because we know that there was a lot of questions. There was comments all about, this relationship between God and money and specifically from God and money, and then from a male's perspective, and then how we misuse it. So let's go into that today.
It's coming from 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. It says, "For the love of money is the root of all evil, which while some covet after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows." People always say money is the root of all evil. That's the part you hear all the time.
Yeah.
And to me, that's where we get it wrong. And it's the love of money. And what you just laid out in the whole intro, kind of laying it out for everybody to kind of know where we're coming from. That love, every example you gave, that person was pointing to something else that they love over what really should have been the focus.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me think about the worshiping of idols, Rodney, because I see a lot of men specifically, they tend to chase empty items, and money is a big name because from a very young age, we're taught as men that we have to provide at all costs. And I think when you don't have the spiritual background and intelligence, that's when it really can go awry, because you're on this race and you feel like if you get these pieces of paper or currency that is going to solve your issues and everything's going to, it's like that chasing that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But the reality is it's never enough money. It won't ever be. Money is infinite. They print it every day. Money is digital now. You can send millions of dollars in seconds across the world. And until we as people just realize that and start teaching different principles, then we're going to continue this vicious cycle.
Yeah. I think so. On that point, and I'm thank you, Rodney, for bringing up the scripture. I think one part of it that people really miss is the context of that verse. Like they not only misquote the verse, but then they also take it completely out of its context. So like back in First Timothy, we got to remember First Timothy, the Apostle Paul wrote this letter, handed it to Timothy so that he can go to Ephesus and talk to these people who had all of these corrupt leaders who were extremely greedy, and they were misusing and twisting up and then putting their own spin on the word of God, putting it on the message. And they completely, and it was really the First Timothy was trying to tell people about true leadership. That was the issue there. The leaders were wrong. The leaders weren't doing what leaders should do. And so what Paul did in this letter is pretty much he took those people out, all that garbage that they were used to. He took all that out. And then what he did was he put Jesus, Christ, the King, at the head of it and said, this is the example of what true leadership is. Yeah. And on what you were saying, Mike, it's like this example has been completely watered down, washed up, and replaced with all kinds of other garbage. Like we've been for so long, everybody is now like, we think that being a man includes all this other stuff. And then we kind of misrank what truly is the priority. And then we tend to replace God with an idol. And then that idol becomes the source, our protector, our provider, instead of God who can actually do all these things. Money can't.
No. You're absolutely right. I think, Mike touched on the whole idols, and it really do come down to making money an idol, and anything we love becoming an idol. And Martell, you framed it out great, because he was talking to Timothy, actually, training Timothy, to understand. And, we have to be trained as it relates to what we need to love. And I mean, let's start. I mean, it's really about God. God needs to be first. And that verse talked about straying away from the faith, and that's the error, that we make money our God. We make things our God. And we always going to have a result that's going to wind up empty when we make anything our God other than the true God who is one in heaven through Jesus Christ. So that's I don't care what it is. If we put our faith and hope in something other than God, it's going to fail every time.
This makes me think about a conversation we were having in one of our Manhood 2.0 meetings. Mm-hmm. And one of the brothers was giving an example. And he was basically saying that he was talking about bear hunting, right? And he was saying basically the number one rule is you gotta know what a bear looks like. That's number one. Mm-hmm. Then number two is you have to have the proper tools in order to take that bear out, basically, defend yourself. And so to me, as you were talking, Rodney, I was just thinking about how money, which can be a tool to provide freedom for you and your family and give back to the people and do some of the things that we're supposed to do based on what God tells us to do, it can become something that turns into an evil thing, which it doesn't. The thing is not evil, is what we're doing with the thing that becomes evil, right? And so it makes me think about addiction, and a lot of people, they don't even know that they're addicted to chasing money. And they'll just say, I'm on the grind, or I'm getting to the paper, I'm getting that money. And it's like, well, really, you become addicted to being at work. You may work two jobs. And so you can never spend time with your family. Then it becomes an issue where your addiction is taking precedent. It's almost to the point where being around your family almost seems uncomfortable, because you're not out chasing that high, which is the addiction, which is the love of money. But before you actually start to make adjustments and attack that problem, you have to realize what it is. Going back to what the brother said, you got to know what a bear looks like.
Yeah, I think too. And I mean, I think we see that exact thing all the time. And I think it's almost glorified today, especially because, we're now in the era where the entrepreneur is also the celebrity. And so like we've got people on a pedestal like Elon Musk, for example. If you look into his story, if you listen to him tell his story, he will tell you that like literally his whole journey like to building Tesla was the most difficult and hardest thing, and took all of his focus, all of his time, all of his attention, and they spent every day, every hour, every minute that he could to build this thing up. And in that, like we see it, like entrepreneurs see it, and we're like, oh man, grind. Look, he was doing his stuff. He was taking care of business. Like, oh man, that's dope. That's good that he was so focused that he went through all this trash and he rolled his face through dirt and rocks metaphorically and never looked up to breathe and never did anything for anybody else at any point in time and never thought about anything else because he could move all of his distractions to just focus on building his company and making millions and millions and millions of dollars. But it's like we glorify that thing. We glorify that level of work ethic. We glorify that level of focus. But for us believers, that's not the purpose. We've missed the ball completely. That can't be it. That can't be the end game for us. Because the thing is, that level of grind, that level of focus, look, it might be okay for a season to just go deep and just be focused and be completely zeroed in on something. But that should not make up your story. There is more to life than that. And there's more things that you were called to do than just that. So if you're telling me that you feel like you've accomplished something because you have not left any room for anything else in your life, not left any room for people, your family, not left any room for giving, charity, love, not have given any sort of space for a wife or children, not have done anything for the community, and you think you've done something special because you made some money, sir, you have failed. You suck.
Hey, look, you need to make a whole message out of that, Martell. I love the passion because you're right. And as you were saying that, I was just thinking about my own personal life growing up. And you look at the world, you're like, hey, man, I need a car. You know, I want that nice car. I want that nice job. I want nice clothes. So to get all that, you need some money. You need to be rolling. And I just remember, you know, in college and getting out of college, just being focused. So, hey, I need to make X amount of dollars. You know, I'm like, hey, if I make this much, I'm going to be fat, I'm gonna be doing good. Then you get to that point. Then it's like, you need to make more, you know, and I'm saying like, oh, well, that's not enough now. I need to make more. I need to get a promotion. I need to do all these things. I got to go back to school so I can get my degree so I can get a promotion. And everything was focused on getting more money. And what I realized as I started my walk with God and understanding that, you know, it was God first, that every time I hit a mark where I thought I wanted to be, it was empty. You kind of get there, you like, look around, you're like, man, this don't really feel like what I thought it would. And when I understood that God had to come first, you know, I didn't feel that void anymore. It was like, hey, you know, God blessed me. When that happened, it was a blessing, but it wasn't a focus to say, hey, I need this to have my identity. You know, money, it becomes your identity, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, to your point, Rodney, I think that's a great point, because a lot of these teachings and learnings about how and what money is, it comes from our programming from a very early age. And so I think we have to be very clear about the message that we're trying to communicate. And for one, let me say this also. You mentioned it in the beginning, but let me just clarify. There's nothing wrong with having money, okay? Like, I think everyone on this podcast that's speaking right now, we enjoy the fruits of having money. We believe in financial literacy. Like, we firmly believe in that, because in order for you to live out the principles of life that God wants you to live, you need to have some type of financial aptitude in order to be able to help other people. So for one, we're not saying there's anything with having money. We're saying the love of money is where it's very empty and misleading. And a lot of this, it goes back to, you know, our programming as kids, you know. And so some of the things that I like to do with my kids personally is I talk to them about money, That's one thing that in our community, I hear a lot of adults say, you know what, we never really had these conversations about money. We didn't find out about credit really until we started getting to college and everybody's shoving credit cards down our throat, and we may get one and mess it up. And now we're learning the hard side of the credit. So now we have a bad connotation. We got a bad taste in our mouth versus, no, let's have a healthy conversation about credit. Let's have healthy conversations about money, investments. And so that's one thing that I would say to anybody listening, man, we have to shift the narratives around this thing, because money is not bad within itself. It's only when we become addicted to that chase of it. That's when it becomes evil. And that's when we're sinning.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about money as a tool then, because in that same light, because we've said it before in the last episode when we talked about God and money. We are not advocates for the poverty is precious. We're not advocates for that kind of lifestyle where we just believe that the less that you have, the greater spirituality you have. That is not biblical, first off. So let's just get that out the way. And second, it's just flat out stupid, like in reality. Because the thing is, you don't buy food with a prayer. The reality, okay? It's funny because there's the verse. It talks about giving it shall be given to you, pressed down, shaken together, running over, shall men give unto your bosom. That men part is always left out because it's like there has to be somebody that's got it to give it. And so if ain't nobody got it and we all just super happy with just not having nothing, then again, we done missed the ball. And so yes, 100,000%. I think it's important that we instruct the children on like what the purpose of money is and how to use and how to build it in a way that is actually grounded in scripture. Because if we don't, then we can't be like the man who saw the person on the side of the road and then actually said, hey, look, I got something for you. Come over here. Let me take care of you. Because if you ain't got nothing and they ain't got nothing, who's going to help who?
Yeah, no, that's real. And if everybody out trying to get their own and just getting more and more, they don't want to help the next person up. Exactly. I think you said the key word, godly principles, right? And I'm glad Mike kind of level set, because we're not hating on money. We all realize as a tool, as you stated, it's a great tool to bring a lot of different things to our community and to people and to help educate. Because the more, like any tool, and let's look at a power tool, if you don't know how to use it, it will hurt you. Okay. I remember using a circular saw and how my dad showed me, hey, never place your hands here and there. Don't put your hands in front of the saw. Money is like a saw. If you continue to kind of let it flow and you chase it, it will cut you because it will bring you sorrow. Eventually, it will bring you sorrow. Yeah. If that's your guy.
That's 100% true, Rodney. And the thing is, we got to start where we're at. Okay. And that's another thing where let's stop making excuses. We are where we are. And, some people, they weren't taught these lessons. It is what it is. We have a thing called the internet now. We can,
Wait, Mike, the internet, when did that come out?
What he saying?
I don't know exactly when it came up, but I know here. And I know everybody got, they had that smartphone in their hand. And the reason why I thought about this is because one of the biblical phrases is that we're supposed to leave an inheritance to the next generation, right?
Children.
And a lot of people, the reason why I say we are where we are, where, to be honest, a lot of us, we were starting below ground, let alone, with a little launch pad. And that's the part where the reason why I'm bringing this up is it's very important to not get caught up comparing yourself to the next man. Like you talk about Elon Musk or, other people where they may have had a small inheritance of $1 million or whatever. And to them, that's small, but to us, it's like, and you started off with $1 million, you know what I'm saying? And so that's the part where you got to be running your own race. You have to run your own race, and you have to set your own goals. They have to be realistic to where you're at right now. Let's not get caught up. You can't manage $1 million or $10 million if you can't manage 100. You can't manage 50. And that's the part where I see a lot of people, they get so caught up with, the social media, everybody's posting. To be honest, a lot of it's lies too, but everybody's posting these highlights. Oh, we're getting money. Everybody's getting money. Where are the poor people at? If everybody's rich, on the internet. So like I said, let's just keep this, clear, and let's just have a level set and understand that it's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on in the world right now. Best thing you can do for yourself is just be real and start where you're at. Wherever that is, just start right now. Look at your bank account, look at where you want to get, and just start constructing a plan and working a plan.
Definitely.
Can I ask a question around, because we're talking about love of money and everything. Mm-hmm. So here's my question to you guys. So we talked about this piece. What is the correct way? Let's use the Bible as our example, to actually accumulate or grow, I guess, our finances, or grow those things around us, without getting off course. So can we give some advice on that, or at least give some insight into how it should be done?
Yeah, I think just to take this a little bit, I want to go to Proverbs 10:4, and I want to go to the entire book of Proverbs, but we'll start at Proverbs 10:4. He becometh poor that dealeth with a slack hand, but the hand of the diligent maketh rich. So there's a couple key words in this verse, and then the first one that we come across is poor and a slack hand. So you become poor. Now, let's not get all extra foo-foo spiritual about what poor means. Poor means you ain't got it, all right? And so if you deal with a slack hand, a slack is a lazy hand, a sluggish hand, one that's not willing to work, that one that is not being productive. The one that is not being productive works with a slack hand. The one that is lazy, that doesn't want to work, that person has a slack hand, and they become poor. And so that, we see that's obvious. And then on the flip side of that is the hand of the diligent shall maketh rich. Okay, so now let's figure out what diligent means, okay? And I'm gonna give it to you straight from the Bible. Hebrew, it's Hebrew word. It's translated back to charutz. Excuse my Hebrew. But it means sharp-pointed, sharp, diligent, strict decision. It's a keen in intellect, keen in perception, keen in attention. It's diligent, characterized by steady, earnest, and energetic effort. Decision, promptness, and firmness in deciding. So what I take from that, if we're talking about the Bible being the core book of principles that lets us know how we should build wealth and what the meaning of it is and how to get it, I think a good place to start is being diligent. So if you're a person who is steady and earnest and building up their intellect, building up their perception, building up their attention in a certain area, you develop a certain level of mastery in an area. And once you develop a certain level of mastery in an area, you're working, then you become more valuable. And we all know that you don't get paid because of how much you care. You get paid based on how valuable you are compared to the price that you're asking for. And so a person who's trying to build wealth from from a biblical standpoint, you need to actually be good at something. You need to, and I know that sounds simple, but it's like you actually have to be good enough at something to provide value to somebody else. And so if your idea of being rich, if your idea of being wealthy, if your idea of becoming a millionaire is just by doing a bunch of stuff, but doesn't really involve much about people, then your perception of this thing is off. Because the thing is, the reality is, you make more money when money is attracted to you, not when you're chasing really hard after it. So if you want to be wealthy, if you want to have the hand of the diligent that becomes rich, you have to be focused on how good can I get at this thing to be able to serve as many people as I can serve at the highest value that I can serve them so that I can be. And then you're moving in the right direction. Now, there's a bunch more to that, but I'm gonna hand it off to y'all because I think I saw you see y'all ready to go.
I just listened to you and man, you're dead on. And that whole, you're not gonna just get money sitting at home. You're not gonna get money because you just wish to get it. And look, newsflash, a lot of people are playing the lottery. And that is not a plan to get rich.
That's right.
Winning the lottery is not a plan to get rich. So yeah, you know the talents, and we all let's back. We all have talents. We all have skills. We all have something to give to the game. Yeah. And God has given us all gifts. The question is, are we using them? Is what I get out of what you said, Martell. And hey, look, I remember growing up. My dad was like, hey, you need to learn how to work. I had my first job at 11, cutting grass, $5 a day, shoveling snow. So you can make money if you just use what you got to make it.
I think that's so important, Rodney, is the fact that you highlight we all have special talents. You know, it's like a thumbprint. Everybody is very special and unique, and it's all by design. If you are trying to completely emulate somebody else's recipe or process and just duplicate what they did, it's not going to work exactly the same for you. It never will, because you and that person have unique traits that differentiate you guys. So when we talk about mastery, like you were touching on, Martell, I believe in mastery. I believe in when you find out what your thing is, you go full steam ahead and you just submerge yourself in everything about it. But I also think it's important to highlight the fact that there's a process that you have to go on to figure that out. Okay. And, you know, I think when I was coming up, our parents, they were saying, you got to go to college, you know, because a lot of our parents, they didn't have the opportunity to go to college and they were working, and they felt that if they had that degree, then that would kind of take them over the tipping point. Now that we fast forward 2023 and beyond, those college degrees, they're not even holding a lot of weight. I see a lot of people that may have went to college, weren't really suited for college, and spent a couple years there, went to a couple parties, tried to figure it out, and then they went back home. And now they have a mountain's worth of debt that they're trying to pay off, and they don't even have a degree. Or they have a degree, but they have a degree in something that was not specific or specialized enough to where they get a job, but the job is not paying nearly what they thought it would pay because everybody has a degree, you know. And I know everybody literally doesn't have a degree, but the reality is, the weight of those degrees is getting definitely watered down. And so the point that I'm trying to make is spend time and really figuring out what you love to do, what you have special gifts at, because if you love it enough and God's placed it on your heart, you're going to want to spend time on, you're going to want to work for, you're going to want to research things about it when everybody else is going out doing other things. And this is what is going to make you really good and become an expert in your field. And that's when the money comes. All right. It's not just chasing the money. That's not the goal. It's like when we play sports, like I tell my kids, I say, well, we want to win. We want to win. Listen, everybody wants to win. I've never heard a person wake up and say, you know what, we got a game today. We want to lose. I've never heard a person in my life say it. But the reality is, what are you doing to ensure that you get the victory? That's going to be the difference between the people that actually win the game versus lose, because, you know, it's the game of life. Playing a game right now. Let's figure out how to play it right.
Yeah. If we're building upon what is God's thoughts on money, I think I want to take us back to a scripture that I mentioned last week that I think is going to add some more color to what we've all been saying here. Last week, I mentioned Malachi 3:10, bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in mine house. And prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it. And so I think also another thing that we got to talk about, if we're talking about building up mastery, building up our process so that we can build wealth in our area, right? I think we also need to understand that God, the way that if you're talking about building wealth from an earthly standpoint, and then I know this is going to sound contradictory, and I know it's going to sound crazy, and I know if you're not a believer, then this just won't make sense. This just most likely will not make sense. But in reality, the way that God set this thing up is you earn more, you receive more when you give more. That's just how God set it up. It's like a thing that like God literally, the only thing that you'll find that God told you to literally test him in is giving. He said, look, you give and see if I won't. See if I won't do this thing. Like I like, go ahead and try me on this thing. And you know, like if you have skin color that's a couple shades of like mine, then that's not something that you don't test your parent in no area. That's not you don't go in the house and say, well, you said this, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. You don't go start mouthing off on stuff like that. But God literally said, hey, yo, test me, see what I'm gonna do if you give. And so it's like, if we're talking about principles for building wealth from a biblical standpoint, another very important point, diligence, crucially important. Another point is to be a giver. And God, there's a bunch of scriptures about giving, and the main point in it is it's about what kind of heart you come into it with, about your intentions, about your focus, about your motivation. Are you giving because all you're doing is just so that you can get from somebody else? Or are you giving to actually be of service, actually be of value, actually to support, actually to help? If that's not the case, then you might be just giving in vain. And God doesn't serve something that's not according to his own purpose. That's also in scripture too.
No, it's true. And that when at one point you say giving in vain, really, those scenarios you give them because you want to be recognized or you want to feel good about yourself. You're trying to get satisfaction from man versus God. But you hit on so many points, Marty. I don't even know where to start on that. You're absolutely right. And this concept, and I'm glad you read Malachi because it made me think about, I think Mike said this, and I may have took one on me, about a closed fist. You can't get nothing with a closed fist. And I let him give what he said. But the point though is that's the same thing. We try to hold on to what we got so hard that we can't receive nothing else. And a lot of times money is treated that way. I got to hold on. I got to hoard it. You try to keep squirreling it away, but you don't realize you spent a little, or you even gave a little, you'll make even more and open up doors for you. You got to invest. I mean, hey, we got Right Choice Investors right behind Mike right there. You got to invest, and you got to invest in God that you're going to get a return.
Y'all see it.
Yeah. Now, you hit it right on the head. And I was saying that I remember when I was a kid, something my dad said. And at first, it kind of threw me for a loop because it makes sense to me. I'm like, I have these $10. I want to cut a lawn or two, and I want to hold on to this. And he was just telling me, like, listen, man, if you keep that fence closed, you hold on to your $10. But what about if you could make 10 more and then another 10? And I started thinking like, wow. And so that's when that word that you said, investing, that was the early concepts that I'm saying we have to teach the kids, because it's a difference between spending money and investing money. And I had to learn that and understand that very early in my real estate career, because I'm like, man, I'm spending all this money and it doesn't feel good. Money is emotional. I don't like seeing it leave my bank account. I love seeing it come into my bank account. It makes me feel good. And that's the part where we have to shift our mindset, because when we're investing in something, that means we're respecting a return on that investment. That's ROI. So we know if we do what God tells us to do, we're going to get something back, right? And the thing is, we have to do it with the right spirit. We're not just doing it just because, okay, I'm going to give you this, but I expect this in return. That's not the spirit of giving. We're doing it because that's what was on our heart. And we trusted what God told us. We believe his promise, like, be a good steward over my money, what I bless you with. That's another thing too. Money has no owners. Money has no
Say
owners.
that again.
Yep. And we got to remember that everything that we've been blessed with to be stewards over, we don't own that. All right. Now, I think anybody that was around during that 2008 era, I think they can tell you that lesson very clearly, because the whole city of Detroit went bankrupt. A lot of people lost their investments that they thought they owned, and they saw it just vanish in one day. So if we are very clear and careful about our mindset on it and understand that we're not owners, then we'll be able to invest money freely and with the right spirit. And guess what? If enough of us collaborate, we can really do some powerful things.
Yeah, 100%. And so just to, because I mean, I know we getting close to that time. I want to kind of put a bow on this by shedding some light on a few points that we already spoke about, but we maybe just for those out there who are still on the fence, might need this push to get over the edge. Let's go back to that same verse that we started with, that Rodney read for us, and 1 Timothy 6, verse 9, just a little bit further up the page. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. We already spoke about money is not the evil thing. Money is not the evil thing. The love of money is the evil thing. And so, and also too, when you break down that verse, when it says in the King James Version, it says, in the King James Version, it says, but they that will be rich fall into temptation. They that will be, that word will, translated, and it means that the person who is deliberately having the purpose being of the mind to only, all their thing is, the only reason that they're doing what they're doing is to be rich. They fall into diverse temptations. And when it goes to those temptations, it talks about you're going to be tested. You're going to be tried on every front. Just know that once you get this pursuit that you have decided to take on will put you in a situation where you will be tempted to fall away from the faith. You will be tempted to do something crooked. They're going to be tempted to lie about this. You're going to be tempted to cheat about this thing. You're going to be tempted to shave this off of this and give it to them anyway. You're going to be tempted to do all this kind of stuff, because if that is your only pursuit, if that's the purpose of your pursuit. We also talked about, what does God think about money? We also talked about how God has ordered for you to get wealth. Diligence. Try to develop something. Try to get good at something. Really find the lane that you're supposed to be in. God's going to let you know that. If you didn't talk to him already, you need to go ahead and talk to him, and then go all in, just like Mike said. Go all in. And the thing is, you're not giving just so you can get something from somebody. You're giving because you care. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just, I feel like it sounds crazy, but like a lot of times that single point right there is left behind. Like, we don't give just so we can get. We give because we are concerned, we care, and we want to support the thing that we're given to. Don't bring up the verse about bringing the tithes into the storehouse and saying that that's the reason why you don't go to this church, because this pastor's X, Y, and Z he's wrong, this, and that. And then it's like, wait a minute, hold up. I got to check those facts, because it's like, if you are only upset because he had a tithe and an offering at their church, and you're upset about that, you couldn't fathom the idea of putting money in so that the lights can stay on in the church. You crazy. You have lost it. You have missed the point.
I hear you, and let's. look at both sides. I'm thinking about our conversation we had at the barbershop about that topic too. But you did right there. And when we give, and the offering is a good example. All we're doing is giving some of what God gave us already back to Him. He owns it. Going back to that point, and we get so caught up in what's going to happen once we give it, and it's not about that. It's us giving it to God, giving back, giving Him honor. Now, if somebody else do something foul with it, God gonna deal with them.
God's gonna deal with them. And please say that again. God is gonna deal with them, not you. God is gonna deal with them.
Yeah, but God's gonna ask us, what kind of heart did you give?
Yeah. But I do think it's also to add, because both of you guys are making great points, and I agree wholeheartedly. But like you said, we want to touch on a couple of different areas, because we do have people that are watching that come from different backgrounds and experiences. The one thing I would like to add to that too is give what's in your spirit and also what's in your financial means in that moment. Now, I think the issue is with that, Martell, is not giving to the storehouse, because we know that's what we're supposed to do. That's in the word. That's not, it's unquestioned. The issue is when we see Granny, we know she's on a fixed income and she's, moved by the spirit of the word. And now Granny is doing something that doesn't make financial sense, and say, you know what, I'm going to give $500 or $1,000 because I felt the spirit came on me. And we're like, well, hold on, Granny, you got bills to pay. Don't worry about it. God's going to provide. It's like, but that's the part where I think it gets a little slippery, because God gave us sound mind.
He did.
We got to use our mind along with our spirit.
But I'm going to jump in there for a minute, Mike. And you're right. Now, if God told Granny to do it, Granny need to do it. If God told her. But if Granny doing it because the preacher told her, if you do this, then you're going to walk out of here and get $2,000. And she's expecting the $2,000, then that's a bad decision. And the reason why I make that distinguish, Mike, is sometimes, and the word talk about the woman who she had very little, but she gave all that she had. Yeah. And because God led her to, and God will, take care of you in those situations, but make sure God is talking to you, for one. Make sure that your heart is in the right place, for two. And Mike, to your point, make sure that you're not, because sometimes people use God like He the lottery. They feel like, hey, if I give this, then He gonna give me twice more. Yeah.
And that's that's the part. That's the only part. You're absolutely right, Rodney, because if we have our conversation with God, I might not have been on Granny's conversation with God.
That call, we missed it.
So, to me, I'm looking like, what's going on? But you're right. If God told her to do that, absolutely. But that's the part where we got to be careful. God is not like the lottery system. You know what I'm saying? And that's the part where, unfortunately, we've seen this happening in our community specifically, where, some things that didn't make full financial sense to us happen. But like you said, that's kind of drifting down a different road. So yeah, I do. We're having a very fruitful conversation.
Yeah, I think, we're going to need to close this out, but maybe another topic is God is not the lottery.
No, definitely. And I think, and y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but I think both responses that you guys just had speaks to the person's individual relationship with God. Because if you have your individual relationship with God, then you can be able to hear and you know what to do. And you have that self-control, so that when the pastor says, hey, well, we've got this, and that going on. And look, my birthday is coming up, so I expect you to be giving more than you feel comfortable giving today. I want you to know that you ain't got to be doing all of that extra stuff. What did God say to you? To you. Because God is the one who's taking care of you. So if God didn't say give at 10, 20, 30 times what you usually give, then just know that what homie set up in the pulpit, that ain't from God.
Yeah. And if God didn't tell you to bring that W-2 to the church, do not bring that W-2.
Don't you dare bring it. Well, fellas, I think we have another installment of the God and Money series for the people. Y'all think so?
I think so.
I mean,
Mike?
it's a good topic. We always, it's very important subjects.
There you go.
Definitely. So, hey, people, let me do this real quick. Y'all heard it. We gonna come back and continue this conversation about God and money. But we definitely appreciate you for coming on here today. We appreciate you for listening to this episode. Leave comments. I'm reading through the comments. There's been a ton of them. So I haven't gotten through all of them yet. But look, I'm in there. I'm in the conversation. I'm listening. And we're hearing what you guys are saying. And I appreciate you guys putting your input in and having these conversations inside of the comment section. We definitely appreciate it. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet, I need you to go ahead and do that. So you left a comment, but you ain't even subscribed yet. Subscribe to the channel and leave your comment. All right. We're going to get back to you. And also to fellas, ladies, we appreciate you. Actually, I've got something for y'all too. But fellas, real quick, there's a thing that we're doing here in Michigan, and it's called Men 2.0. If you haven't heard about it, I'm privileged to be the first to tell you. We're doing a thing called Men 2.0. It's a men's group that meets one time on the second Saturday of every month. And in this group, we have a group of fellas who are building each other up, sharpening each other, learning what God says about money, learning what God says about family, learning how to be a man from a biblical perspective. And just don't think this is just us talking to you, or this is just some guy who's telling you everything that you need to do. No, we're having open and honest conversations with other men who are going through the same things that you are. So if this sounds like something that you want to be a part of, I want you to go look into the description and register for our Men 2.0 meeting. Maybe you're not in this area yet, but look, we will be expanding this group soon enough so that we can reach everybody who wants to be a part of it. We want you to be a part. We want you to be a part of this kind of community. Thank you for listening to the Today for Tomorrow podcast. We appreciate you, and we will see you next week. Let me go back to the fellas. Everybody, peace.
Peace.